And I think the reformist camp now understands that they made a strategic mistake, a really big strategic mistake.
So reformers are in
and now
nation round?
they're out of power now, but what you see is a new alliance forming between the reformers and Rafsanjani and the people around Rafsanjani.
Oh.
And they have already succeeded. There were municipal elections in December last year where this coalition of pragmatist conservatives and reformers did very well, and those close to Ahmadinejad did not do well. Then there was an election recently for the head of a council which chooses the supreme leader, and Rafsanjani won. He's now the head of the body, it's called the Assembly of Experts, which will choose the next supreme leader. It's a very important job and an important body. And we have in March of 2008 parliamentary elections coming up again. And it will be very interesting to see whether there might be a comeback of some of the reformers and this pragmatic conservative group. It seems that they have a chance in 2008, and then in 2009 we have presidential elections, and Ahmadinejad will have to run against probably more than one candidate.
Are reformers and conservatives are necessarily anti-Islamic government, or they're just opposed to Ahmadinejad? And if that's not the case, who are the opposition, or these are part of the opposition?
Well, this is the part of the opposition that's part of the square dance. They are part of the system.
But not necessarily against Islamic government?
No, not necessarily. They may want to see some changes. I mean,
because there are some oppositions that they totally refuse.
Yeah, well, they're outside the circle.
Republic.
They're outside the circle, and they don't have the power, at least not now, to really affect the system. I'm talking about the people who are in the circle, who have some power still to change the system, and these are reformers and pragmatists.
Okay, we're not still done, and we're going to have a short break. You're going to watch some videos from Iran in a few minutes. We're going to be back with Barbara, and then we'll continue. Okay, thank you for waiting. We're back, and we were talking about the opposition groups that you said one are reformers. What do you call conservatives? What's the difference between reformers and conservatives?
Well, you know, the names of the groups change all the time, and they're various names. But there's a conservative group that is centered on the traditional business people in Iran, the Bazaris.
Yeah, I see.
They're people who are for whom religion is important. They support the Islamic government and some of the...
But not necessarily what Ahmadinejad.
No, I mean, a lot of them actually don't like him because some of his views on religion are frankly a little bit, how shall I put it, they're not really in accord with traditional Shia Islam.
I see.
And they get angry when he tries to pretend that he knows better than the clerics.
Oh, I see. Okay, there are other opposition groups. Do you like to elaborate? And they may not necessarily be in Iran.
Sure.
They're outside of Iran,
Sure.
either United States, Europe, or other places.
Yeah.
So
there are people who would like to see a complete
who are
change
those
in the
groups?
system.
Do you like to tell a little bit about that to our audience?
Well, within Iran, there's a group called the Freedom Party, which is one of the original groups that supported the revolution against the Shah and has been barred from participation because it's a secular group. But Ibrahim Yazdi, he was a foreign minister.
Yes.
Right after the revolution, he's still the head of it. He's elderly now, but he's still there. And there are others who were supporters of Mossadegh and who supported... Nationalists, yeah, who supported the revolution, but who did not want to see an Islamic government, a theocratic government imposed. So there are many of these people in Iran. There are young people who belong to a variety of student groups who would also like to change the system.
Do we have any socialists left?
I don't know if there are any
They
socialists or
call it
communists
slash
left.
communist?
Yeah, I think they're pretty much gone. I don't know, since the collapse of the old Soviet Union.
What about Mujahideen?
Well, this is a group that exists outside Iran. It's the largest organized group outside the Mujahideen Halq. And it's very controversial. A lot of people think that it's kind of a cult of personality, that they brainwash people. I did some stories about them, and when I've met members outside Iran. I met one of their leaders in Paris, where they have an exile headquarters, and I've also met former members in Iran who have left the group and who have complained about it. So it's a controversial group. I have to say, I don't think it has very much support in Iran.
I was just going to ask you
because it sided with Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq War, and it took refuge in Iraq. And for this reason, most Iranians in Iran do not trust them and do not like them. But they still have some support, particularly outside the country.
Okay. Okay, if we divide the Iranian-American relationship, let's say, into 3 eras, one, the friendship era with Shah, and then came the Mossadegh era, the bitterness about that, and then came the hostage crisis. That 3, the 4th one, probably, I think, among Iranian is when President Bush called Iran axis of evil after September 11th. Yeah. I'd like to see your views about that. And was that a turning point to make things worse instead of better?
Well, it wasn't a turning point. It didn't help, though. What most people don't know is that after September 11th, talks began between the United States and Iran in Paris and Geneva on a rather high level, and went on from the fall of 2001 all the way through to May 2003. They were interrupted for 1 month after the Axis of Evil speech. The Iranians canceled the meeting because they were so angry about it. But Iran was prepared at that time to have a major breakthrough with the United States. And Iran supported the United States in Afghanistan, was a major backer of groups there that overthrew the Taliban. There was the CIA, actually. I talked to CIA people who saw members of the Iranian Quds Force, the Jerusalem force of the Revolutionary Guards, outside Kabul when Kabul fell in November 2001. Yes. We were on the same side with Iran.
Yes.
For that Afghanistan conflict.
Actually, if you remember, Iran was the only Middle East country that after September 11th sympathized officially with the United States, and they kept the candle vigil.
That's right. There were candlelight vigils in Tehran.
Both Tehran and here, Iranians here, they did that. And do you think they have their right to be angry? Do you think the Bush administration really made a huge mistake there?
I think so. More than axis of evil, it was the fact that these negotiations stopped and that Iran made a comprehensive offer. I have it printed in the annex to my book, an offer for talks on all the issues that are between our two countries in May 2003. It was sent from the Swiss embassy in Tehran, which represents U.S. interests, to the Swiss embassy in Washington. It was hand-delivered to the State Department in early May 2003. And the Bush administration never even replied, because at that time, you remember, Bush thought mission accomplished. He thought Iraq was a huge success. That the United States,
we don't need Iran.
We don't need Iran, exactly.
Forget
and Iran, you know, they'll be the next government
to
fall.
The price of arrogance.
That's right. And so, you know, we rejected this opportunity. In May 2003, Khatami was still president. The nuclear program was not very advanced. And the United States was much stronger militarily in Iraq than it is today. So it was a huge missed opportunity.
Well, the most current and hot issue, of course, is the nuclear energy. And United States claiming, yes, they have it, like what they said about WMDs, and Iran insisting, no, we're not using it, you know, as any way harmful, but we do have it, and we're going to do it because of, you know, electricity, power, whatever. And it's all right, according to the United Nations article. And so here, how do you see going to Iran? How Iranian people react to it? How do you see the diplomacy here is going about it, and American foreign policy makers think about it? Or is it Iraq revisited? They're doing exact same thing that they did with Saddam, WMDs, human rights, and there was one more thing, if I have it somewhere. There were 3 things.
Proliferation. Nuclear proliferation.
And terrorism.
And terrorism.
And terrorism, these things. They're doing exact same thing now about Iran accusations. Do you think is that the same thing they're doing to?
Yeah, well, they are using the same arguments again. I mean,